Welcome, and we hope that you will enjoy the next 60 minutes with regard to 5 hot features from FME that have come from the World Fair. What I'd like to now do is actually introduce a bit about OneSpatial, your FME Platinum partner in Australia. We are a global organisation. We have offices in Cambridge in the UK, which is head office, and we have offices in Ireland, France, Belgium, Tunisia, US, as well as here in Australia, where we have our head office in Sydney and an office in Melbourne, as well as an office in Canberra as well, with support team there. We partner with Safe Software, and primarily our presentation today will be about the Safe Software package FME. Our key industries that we work in is government, utilities, transport, mining, and architecture, engineering and construction. We have a number of clients around Australia, and as you can see there, they are listed not comprehensively in the slide, but they give you an idea of where we're at. We are a software solutions provider and a global expert in managing location and geospatial data. We are striving to make the world safer, smarter, and more sustainable for the future. We endeavour to help our customers to unlock the value of their data to create a smarter world. We deliver powerful data solutions and applications on-premise, mobile, and in the cloud. We are customer-centric business. We deliver solutions to address our customers' needs and market requirements. And above all, we love to collaborate with people. As you see with our solutions, we have One Integrate, One Data Gateway, OneSpatial, LMAP, and One Edit. A recent package which has been featured in the latest Position magazine, leakage, positional accuracy improvement, and UN migration. As I mentioned, today's presentation will mainly be on our FME products that we offer, FME Desktop, Server, and Cloud, and we'll go through that in a bit more detail. Okay, our key staff, we have staff in Australia, and I wanted to go through those staff. We have Andrew Bashfield, our sales manager, Simon Laird, our services lead, Emma Yates, our marketing manager, Tom Farrington, senior consultant and the manager of our training program, Daniela White in our sales division, and coordinates our annual maintenance and the training program in conjunction with Tom, Michael Studdard, sales consultant, Priyantha Palagrama, or Pri, to his friends, as our senior consultant and manages our support network, Sam McDonald, senior consultant, and Sis Manandahar, our senior consultant, and myself as the country manager for OneSpatial. We provide a number of services. We facilitate product evaluations, we do demos and proof of concepts for people. We do consultancy for project work where you have a situation that you may not have the facilities to do it in-house, or you have the facilities but you don't have the time, so you prefer to get someone else to do it. So all those things are available to you. We have public and private training services where we can train you and your staff at your place or at our facilities, our training facilities around Australia. We do one-to-one mentoring and FME workspace reviews. We have our annual maintenance, which includes all technical support for FME products. We have expertise from our FME consultants who are all qualified FME consultants with server and also with training. If you have any questions or need any information, you can get in contact with us at sales.australia@onespatial.com. I'd like to now take this opportunity to welcome a special guest, Adi Bakatari, who is our channel manager for the Asia Pacific region from Safe Software, and welcome Artie to the event. And I thank you very much for making the time. I know it is in the evening for you, so welcome, and I'll hand it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Andre, for the warm welcome. Appreciate it. Thanks to OneSpatial for allowing me to be a part of their webinar today. And hope you are all as excited as I am about to see the 5 hot features of FME that OneSpatial will be highlighting. So I won't try to ruin the surprise too much. So today we're just going to do a high-level overview for those that may be new to FME. Welcome, and for those that are already using FME, we hope that you're enjoying the platform. We're just going to go and talk about the platform and the history of Safe Software at a high level. If we can go to the next slide, please. So, what does FME do? So what we do is we help address common and complex data challenges, mainly by reducing or eliminating data silos in most cases. Organizations obviously spend a lot of money in order to buy applications that are best fit for their business and needs and organization. But as we can see here, these applications, when purchased, they can become segregated and siloed and allow for information that's required to be flowing through the system to be more manual or time consuming and help potentially cause delays in decision making. Next slide, please. So that's where FME comes in. We help integrate all this data and application together with our platform FME, which is a enterprise data integration platform and application integration that does not require the knowledge or any sort of coding or scripting at all. And we help facilitate the information to the proper resources and users that require the information in order to complete their day-to-day jobs and help expedite decision-making processes as well. Next slide, please. Our mission at Safe Software is very simple. Our mission is to help you maximize the value of your data, no matter where it's stored, no matter who needs access to it, and no matter what type of data that is. We specialize in spatial data, but we also specialize with non-spatial data as well. So we're really an enterprise-wide solution that can help address both needs when it comes to the complex GIS side, or as well as even the more complex non-spatial side that requires integration to help gain value and business insights. Next slide, please. We've been around for over 27 years. Slide needs a little bit of an update with that number, but we have the pleasure of working with over 10,000 organizations globally. We are operating in 128 different countries. And although all of our staff is located in the beautiful Vancouver, Surrey, British Columbia, Canada, we have the pleasure of working with a network of global partners such as OneSpatial that allow us to extend our reach in areas such as Australia and provide local pricing, local services, local support, and local services to our wonderful customers in those regions. And we're very supportive of our partner network, and we work very closely with them when it comes to ensuring to address all their questions when it comes to the FME platform and helping them with certifications and such as well. So for those that may be familiar or may be new to FME, just a quick high-level overview of the FME platform. The FME platform, our journey always begins to the far left with FME Desktop. This is where you do your authoring or building your workspaces in a GUI-based drag-and-drop interface that does not require any sort of scripting or coding. You can extend the capabilities of FME through manual scripts and codes, but it's not necessary. Then we have FME Server, which automates those workflows, either based on database triggers or trigger events, and it can be an SMS notification or email, and your application integration can be done through there. Both FME Desktop and FME Server are both on-premise, but we're very data agnostic, as I'll mention later on. So your deployment of FME is totally up to you, and we're very flexible with which platform you're working with. But for customers that may want a more hands-off experience with FME Server and they don't want to worry about the deployment of it, we have FME Cloud as an option, which is FME Server hosted on SafeSoftware's AWS infrastructure, and we work with our MSPs in our partner network, such as OneSpatial, to help provide not just guidance but also pricing and support when it comes to FME Cloud for customers that choose to go that route. Next slide, please. So this is a wonderful slide that shows the journey of where we've started with SafeSoftware and FME. As I mentioned, our focus is on both the spatial and non-spatial side. So as you can imagine, at the beginning of our journey as an organization, a lot of support was around the spatial side with GIS to CAD or CAD to GIS. And as our business continued to grow and as our customers' needs continue to grow and our partners' needs continue to grow, we start to add more support for other data types. So supporting databases, supporting BIM, supporting cloud, supporting big data, gaming, indoor mapping. We have a very wonderful and close relationship with Apple on the IMDF side. And we're always, forward thinking and future thinking. So we're trying to identify where the market is heading from a data integration perspective and application integration. And we're heavily investing into the AR, ML, and augmented reality side as well to help with the future aspect and the future proofing of FME. We're very proud of this recognition that we got from Gartner late in the summer last year. We were recognized in the Magic Quadrant for the first time. Under the niche players, you'll see FME and SafeSoftware right on top of the niche category. And we're very proud of this solely because of the fact that it's a true testament of our organizational value in the FME platform, being your enterprise data integration, application integration solution. And it couldn't have been achieved without the wonderful customers, partners, and of course our internal staff that we have as well. So it's a wonderful recognition that we're very, very proud of. We work with multiple different technology partners and leading software vendors around the world. That includes organizations such as Azure. We have a very close relationship with them, as well as CityWorks on the asset management side. And the one partnership that is fairly recent that we're very, very excited about is on the bottom left, Snowflake. They're a cloud data warehouse, and we've formed a partnership with them to help support their spatial efforts as well as their non-spatial efforts as well. Next slide, please. As I mentioned earlier, the deployment of FME is quite flexible, and we're very data agnostic. So whether you choose to deploy FME in Windows, Mac, Linux, Docker, Kubernetes is totally up to you. We are open and flexible. And of course, for customers that don't want to worry about the infrastructure side with FME Server, we have FME Cloud as an option, which is FME Server hosted on SafeSoftware's AWS infrastructure. Next slide, please. And for those of you that may want to get FME but want to deploy it on your own private cloud or virtual cloud, you can find FME in the Google Cloud and the Microsoft Azure Marketplace. These are a bring your own license model. So if you don't have a license currently, please reach out to the OneSpatial team to coordinate that. And you can use that in order to deploy it in your Google Cloud or Microsoft Azure environment once you get the license. And that's all from me. Again, I wanted to thank you, OneSpatial, for allowing me to be a part of this, and I hope you enjoyed a brief overview of SafeSoftware and FME. And I believe now I'm going to pass it back over to Andre.
Thank you very much, Artie, and always welcome. And thank you very much again for taking the time to be with us and to share your knowledge about FME and the SAFE organisation. We look forward to getting you on for the next one next month. So
I look forward to it as well. Thank you.
Okay, so today we're going to go through the 5 hot features that we think that you will be interested in. Enterprise integration, the FME parameter manager, self-service, creating PDF reports, and getting started quickly with FME Cloud. So I'd like to kick it off with Sam McDonald, who's going to talk to you about the enterprise integration. Welcome, Sam, and over to you.
I'll find that mute button. Thanks, Andre, and thank you, Artie, as well. So, as mentioned, my name's Sam McDonald, and I'm a consultant at One Spatial, and I'm here to talk to you about enterprise integration with FME, FME Server. It's generally what happens, but FME in general. A topic that honestly I just keep coming back to talk about because it's a worthwhile topic. It's very important and catches people's eyes. So the topic of enterprise integration in FME it's one that I could spend over an hour talking about easily, but I don't have an hour unless everyone else wants to give up their time. So I'm going to focus on a more specific topic for the case of this hot feature, which is using the connectors that SAFE continues to introduce each year to better integrate FME with other systems. So before we start talking connectors and methodology in FME, let's actually talk a little bit about enterprise integration. What is it aside from popular buzzword? People like to throw around, what's your plan for enterprise integration patterns? How are you going to integrate? Enterprise integration is a technical field of enterprise architecture that it typically focuses on topics around system interconnection, distributed computing environments, and so on and so forth. Effectively, different systems and environments being brought together and working together. It generally encompasses multiple technologies, processes, and structures that connect devices, applications, and most importantly, data. Together, bringing them all together within an organization. Interconnection of these said components is usually supplemented with middleware, a component that sits between two systems and enables that communication between the two. And if anyone's familiar with electronics in general, I always have this analogy in my head. It's effectively a transducer when I think of middleware. This interconnection that this transducer is it's designed to enable an efficient data flow between systems and consolidate data between environments. Ultimately, this provides an integrated environment that is able to communicate and invoke related systems as required. Ideally, this is done with central monitoring and logging as well to provide more reliability and redundancy between systems, whilst improving the process of sharing data between them. It's perfect for the ultimate abilities of interconnection and intercommunication. Now, where does FME fall into this? Well, primarily as the middleman, in my opinion, aka middleware. FME, especially FME Server, is a spectacularly diverse plugin tool for this kind of application. It is literally in the name ETL, extract, transform, load. We're just sort of changing the extract and load elements to something that people perhaps associate a little less with ETL, which is the system integration aspect of it, opposed to the file transformation that people generally are exposed to an ETL solution for. So let's get into the big question. What's hot in FME 2021, specifically related to this topic? Well, first and foremost, new connections. Every year, SAFE introduces new features and supported formats to further extend and diversify their platform. This includes new file formats, supported applications, web services, and database connections. Quickly referencing the logos that I have on this slide that I've quickly just chucked in there. Some of the new ones of 2021 are H3, Apache Parquet, 360 docs, CCAN project, OGC web map tiles and API features, Pixar USD, and the most important one for this topic, RabbitMQ, which we will be discussing. With each new connection that is introduced by SAFE, and they keep coming, the process of integrating FME into new and existing enterprise integration patterns just gets that much more straightforward. Let's talk RabbitMQ, and don't judge too much for the terrible joke. RabbitMQ is one of the most widely used popular open source messaging brokers. And the reason it is so popular is that it's highly versatile and supports asynchronous messaging with multiple message protocols. Most importantly and most popular is AMQP there, and that's what we will be discussing. But these message protocols, queuing, delivery acknowledgement, and so on. I could keep throwing out statements about it. Connecting to the RabbitMQ broker in FME was not a straightforward task previously, and I know because I've played around with it before and other brokers prior to the introduction of these. And the reason that it was not straightforward previously is that it required that the Java client libraries be installed in the plugin folder for FME for the shared resource that the engines and FME server itself reference. The connection factory configuration being specified. So you actually have to define a config file, and then you also need to specify the provider context in the JMS sender transformer or receiver, along with all the parameters related to it. That's easier for me to say now because I've gone through a lot of time and pain figuring it out, having previously come from a background that didn't understand messaging so much. But honestly, if people don't need to learn it, I'd rather they didn't learn it. Now, and obviously it could be done previously, and it is a good example of FME being extensible, but it's just not straightforward. But with this new connector, the RabbitMQ connector, it really is straightforward, and I love it. With this connector, you can connect to the RabbitMQ message broker via AMQP, and specifically it's 0.9.1, if that means anything for anyone, to send, receive, acknowledge, or count messages. It does support SSL and TLS encryptions when connecting to the broker, and most importantly, it supports new data streaming workflows with no need to set up a custom AMQP client. All one needs to do to get started with this transformer is to define the web connection. You can do it in the transformer, or you can actually define a specific web connection for it and then just use that web connection. That's what I would suggest. And then specify the mode and the parameters, which we will be taking a look at shortly. I'll actually show how to do this. Next on the list of my new connections, or SAFE's new connections that I'm just talking about, is the Azure Event Hubs connector. Now, this nifty little transformer will allow you to publish or receive messages asynchronously on the Azure Event Hub service. It does it by it connects to Azure's Event Hub through the Kafka protocol using the Azure Event Hub SDK, and supports publishing, receiving, and checkpointing messages, which if there's any sticklers, they're actually they are called events in the official documentation for Azure. I'm just in a habit of calling these things messages because it's a bit more of a broad spectrum term for the overall practice that we're talking about. So I'm going to keep calling them messages. Now, similar to the previous connector we just talked about, this actually also has a dedicated web connection. So the RabbitMQ one has a dedicated RabbitMQ web connection. It's not just a generic web connection. And so does this. This has a dedicated Azure Event Hubs web connection that can be configured for use with this transformer. The last transformer that we're going to look at on this topic of new connectors is actually a custom transformer. So going a little different direction here, which is the Microsoft Teams connector, which has been getting a bit of attention. Now, as mentioned, this is a custom transformer built, and it's actually built by the Safe Software Lab. It allows FME to post messages to a channel, list files in a channel, and get SharePoint details for a channel. It makes use of Microsoft's Graph API to connect, which can be downloaded as a web service for FME server. It doesn't come out of the box, but it can be downloaded just by going to the web connections page and selecting Managed Services to download it from the FME hub. It was very non-evident to me when I first tried to do it, so I'm saying it out loud. You will need to register your application with the service to work, with the Microsoft Identity Program, which is done through Azure Active Directory, I believe, to allow the web service to work. It is, now it's worth mentioning, and I've already mentioned that it is a custom transformer, and it is more subject to ongoing development and troubleshooting. AKA, don't expect quite the same stability from this than the officially released transformers I've just discussed. But there is a reason I'm talking about this still, even if it is a custom transformer, is that I want to talk about this because it's a really good example of this ongoing commitment to providing more connectivity for the FME platform, whether it is through official releases and official transformers, or whether it is through custom transformers that trickle through during the year, is that there's still this commitment and this dedication to providing more and more connectivity through different avenues. And I think that's worth calling out. I can hear my phone beeping, excuse me. Now, as well as these new connectors that are introduced this year, I might as well just quickly call out some of the existing connectors, because there is just an onslaught of them from past years that are available and ready to use as well. And these, just quickly list through them, these include but are not limited to MQTT, which is another popular messaging protocol along with AMQP. Salesforce, Slack, a good one to bother people about coffee again. Google Services, Dropbox, Twitter, JMS, and I call out JMS specifically because JMS is an API while MQTT and AMQP are protocols. People do tend to interchange those, and they're not interchangeable. JMS is its own thing. Database connections, Microsoft services, Esri, Amazon Web Services, Jira, Trello, and ProjectWise, just to name some. Now, the next big topic to discuss while we're talking about enterprise integration is automations, which is basically a means of completing top-level designs and really tying together and integrating your individual workflows to create one seamless overall process. With automations, you can easily design your own JSON messaging workflows. So basically, this is just a JSON message that is updated as it passes through each block and tells it what to do. And these automations are generally comprised of three main components. You get your triggers, which listen for and receive messages from external clients or from within FME server. External actions, which are just the other end, is that they send messages to external clients or inside FME server. And actions, which basically process messages between triggers and external actions, either in an FME workspace or through another tool. So automations at a top level, you can come right back down to this extract, transform, load principle that FME is built on, is that triggers extract information and invoke a process. Actions load that message into something else. External actions, and actions themselves are the transformers that they take that message and manipulate it in some way and perform actions based on that message. Same principle, higher level. Now, because I love automations, I want to talk about what's new in automations, and there are a couple of things that I want to just mention based on my my past experience with automations. I really appreciate these. The first one is manual triggers. So what you can do now is that you basically can run your automations with the click of a button. And this is really cool because what you can do is you can actually define or upload JSON strings to pass to the workflow, just either in the little box there, right there, or just upload it. Historically, what I've done prior to this functionality is I've actually written very small workbenches that actually pass information to a topic, basically, that define a JSON that I want to, because the JSON's hard to define for users. But with this kind of functionality, it sort of extends that now that you could just provide the JSON directly to the users and they could just upload it. So no workbench, no additional workbench, which is great. So it does make it a great tool for running automations on demand. But it also makes it a really cool tool for testing and debugging automations during development, which can be a little unintuitive at times. It can be hard to poll what's happening in the message, review it, and go from there. So great tool. Good job, Safe. Next one that's new to automations is idea of guaranteed delivery. Another really great one. This basically is it's a loop. It's a reattempt loop that ensures that external actions or workspaces will be retried until successful. There's been means to do this previously through looping, or again, I've done it previously by passing to topics or writing schedule, like actually creating schedules that then pass back to invoke it again. But with this functionality, you really don't have to do it manually as much anymore, because now you have the ability in your automation basically to configure the reattempt parameters right there to compensate for internal or external systems failures that would normally cause a termination. This is the primary reason that I put reattempts in place, is that if a system goes down for a few seconds, you don't want an entire process to fail because of it. 20-minute runtime potentially for something, and then the message broker wasn't available for 3 seconds, therefore your workbench failed. It's not ideal. Yeah, great little process. The other thing to talk about very quickly before I get on to actually showing something is this notion of extensibility. And this has been around there for me for a while. But basically, this idea that if it doesn't come out of the box, well, you can adapt. Because Safe puts a lot of work into making FME the most compatible software you've ever seen. That's a pride and joy. You go on their website and you'll get blasted with, here's all the formats we support, and it's a good sale. It's a good sales pitch. But on top of that, they also offer several ways to extend functionality to meet your integration requirements. And this can be through scripting languages, Python, which is my jam personally, R or a Tickle, system callers, which you can use for different reasons. If you need to invoke something like a shell command, or you need to call an external binary, you can do it through your system's system shell. And binary and library support, being able to actually include plugins that FME will recognize, like what I mentioned earlier with how we used to do RabbitMQ. And this just adds extra functionality if it doesn't come out of the box. I keep saying if it doesn't come out of the box. Okay, what we're going to do is I'm going to very quickly just show a demonstration. So what I want to do is I want to show the difference between setting up RabbitMQ now versus how we used to set it up. So what I have is I have a workbench. All good FME demonstrations start with a workbench. And I very quickly just set up a creator that's going to send a message that is hello world. I just want to send this to my broker. Now, I have a broker that's active. So my RabbitMQ broker that's very securely, it's very secure credentials are guest. Don't anyone, access it. I'm going to trust everyone on the line here. With no queue defined yet, which is fine, because RabbitMQ will actually let FME define a queue if it's set up to, which mine's set up to. Basically, it's the default functionality. So I just need, well, actually, before I even grab the transformer, I need to set up the web connection. So we'll go to FME options and start a web connection. And as I mentioned, there is just this RabbitMQ one here. My host is one spatial, which is a computer that's on my network. The default AMQP port is generally 5672. I'm not going to worry about SSL TLS. Guest, like I said, super secure. Done, it's added. Then I'm going to add the RabbitMQ transformer, world connector. And we're going to connect that, and we're going to use the web connection, and we're just going to specify the one that I just did. I want to send a message direct, And for the routing key basically is the queue that we're going to send it to. I'm going to call it demo. I'm going to move my mouse so you can see demo.queue. And the payload is the message. And I'm going to set persistent delivery mode. Done. I'm just going to make sure I'm going to send one message. Yep. Let's run that. It's sent. And if I just refresh well, it'll refresh in a few seconds. And we've got a queue that suddenly appeared called demo queue, which has one message in it, which is great. If I wanted to send 5 more messages, just update the creator to be 5 messages, and let it just pump through. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There it goes. This just needs its refreshes on intervals, so it'll just take a second. There it goes, up to 6. So very, very straightforward to start sending messages to this broker. Infinitely easier than what it used to be. But I've been talking about how it used to be, and I think it's worth just quickly showing how it used to be and how it still can be, because again, there are some reasons that you might want to take advantage of the extensibility. So if you did want to do this by actually configuring a custom client, you'd have to start with the libraries. Now, here's one I prepared earlier. Sounds like a cooking show. And I need to move them over to just the FME shared folder under, it's under plugins and Java. Had to think about that for a second. Good, they're available. Now, should restart, but especially if you're using server, but I'm not going to do that because this is just purely to show how to do it. Cool, so we've got the libraries available. The next thing to do is to define the property. So this is what's called a JNDI property file. And actually, just to quickly clarify, the libraries that I've just copied are actually they're ActiveMQ. They're not RabbitMQ. This is another AMQP broker and client. It's just one that I'm more familiar with as well. So different broker, different client, same kind of approach. So what we'd need to do is we need to find a connection factory, and I'm going to call it our demo broker, and define the address for it, which is again that address on port 5672. That's the same. I also need to define that queue, which would be, I'll just call it, that's the object that we'll call, and the actual queue was demo queue. Actually, I'll call it queue test queue. We'll call it. That's fine. What this will do is this basically, when I go and call this file, it will give it the address. It'll reference the name of the connection factory and pass that address on, and then I'll be able to call the queue. I can have multiple queues in here, something else, but for the sake of this, it'll just be that. So that's fine. Then what you would do would be you'd enter this into the JMS sender or receiver. Basically, what you would need to do is you would need to define the provider type, and this is where things start to get a bit, you have to go Googling to find this stuff, because this is the Apache Cupid libraries, and the provider type for this is org Apache Cupid JMS JNDI for the type that I'm using, JMS initial, I've made a little error, JMS initial context back, well, Butterfingers at the moment. The provider is actually this file itself, which I can just copy the path and that's the provider. The connection factory we called demo broker, and we called this test queue, and we needed to define the message. And that would be what you would need to do to get this basically working with a ActiveMQ, which is Apache ActiveMQ AMQP broker. And the question might be, well, why am I doing this? Why am I showing this? We love this more, and I agree. I love this too. But understanding how to capitalize on extensibility is always worthwhile, because there's another consideration to this, is that what I've just done is completely usable in the automations as well. when looking at the automations, at the triggers, and even the external actions, we can do this trigger external action, just like we can do for receiver and sender. This idea of something publishing versus something listening. We can actually go to JMS message, and we're presented with, exactly the same options. So I can go ahead and start defining that org, Apache, Cupid, JNDI, so on and so forth. I'm not going to do it all again. But exactly how I just set it up in the JMS sender, I can set it up in FME server as well, which is interesting and valuable to know because it allows you to find listeners and publishers at an automation level. And all you need to do to make this work is provide the those same libraries in the shared resource folders for the plugins. So FME server has its FME share, and that's where you provide those plugins. And then you'll be able to get this working as well through extensibility. Out of the box options and extensibility. It's the best of both worlds and it's fantastic. That basically is going to wrap up my my presentation. Are there any questions for this?
Okay, Sam. Yes, there has been a question that has come through. You used Apache instead of Rabbit for the manual messaging example. Would you be able to message a RabbitMQ broker with an active MQ and vice versa?
No, I don't. No, you wouldn't be able to, but it's not because it actually comes down to the AMQP version, I believe. RabbitMQ, especially the transformer, because I mentioned this, is that the transformer for RabbitMQ actually uses AMQ 0.9.1, which is not compatible with Apache's 1.0. They're entirely different. There's a entirely revised protocol. So no, you can't actually. It's occurred to me. There are open source stuff that you can use, OpenWire, all sorts of things that you can use that do have some cross compatibility. I couldn't attest to how to set them up because my experience is limited on setting up different versions of brokers, because typically it's one broker per infrastructure, or one broker vendor. But no, because of the AMQP version, I think Rabbit's actually got 1.0 support, so you might be able to get it working. But I've actually never done it. It's an interesting question.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll now call upon Tom Farrington, who is our senior consultant, and he will do his presentation on the FME Parameter Manager. Welcome, Tom, and away you go.
Thank you, Andre. Thank you, Sam. So I'm going to talk about the Parameter Manager that's been recently introduced for FME 2021. So in the old system from 2020 and earlier, it was pretty much an all or nothing approach to the actual dialog box that you got as an end user to enter all your parameters. So you had a box that looked like this. All the parameters were available to you directly, some of which you might not need to even know about for this particular run. So it made it really quite hard to get a good user experience. No way of adding extra explanation into the dialog box to help the end user out. You just get whatever you've put in as the parameter prompt, which could lead to prompts being way too wordy. This has now been improved. Let me just see if I move on again. And we've now have, there we go, the parameter manager. So it now brings everything together into one interface. So we still create them in a similar way. We go and right click on the in the navigator window, we can right click on user parameters, and instead of having the create user parameter option, we get the option now for manage user parameters, and that will then open up the dialog box that you can see on the right hand side of the screen there, and it'll open up with just a blank dialog. I've already pre-populated some parameters in here to make it look a little more interesting. And we just have, excuse me a minute. So basically, to create some parameters, you click on that the plus sign there, which I've just put a red box around just to draw that one out, and then you can go and select the type of parameter you want to add, set the configuration up, so whether you want what you want to call the parameter, whether you want it to be a published parameter or a private parameter, whether it's optional or not. So all the ones that have a red star next to them now, those are compulsory ones, so you won't be able to continue through. So in the previous dialog boxes, they were just red boxes, and now they've just put probably a little more elegant solution of just having a red star next to them to say what's there. We have access to all the previous parameter types, but some of them have been consolidated, so we're not now seeing things like text and text multi-line as separate options for parameters. They're now just called text, and we can define what sort of text in the configuration side of it. There are also some new parameter types which we'll go through in the next few slides as well. And one last little thing in here, we were always able to look at where user parameters were used. If we right-clicked on the user parameter in the navigator window, you could choose to show references, but they've added in new functionality on that drop down now on that context menu, so that we can always show references. So when we create a parameter, those references are always available to us. Moving on, so looking at some of the new parameter types, we have a message type, which then allows us to basically just provide a message to the user. It has you give it an identifier, same as we would for any parameter, but there's no user input for it. It's literally there to maybe put a title onto a section of parameters or maybe some extra instruction. And you can see from the box there's quite a bit of space that you might want to put an explanatory paragraph in if you think it's required. So you've got that capability. Another parameter type we've got now are a group parameter, which allows us to then populate inside the group extra parameters. So we put a group identifier in. The group itself can have a message. It's already built into the group parameter, so you can say what the purpose of the group is. And then you can decide on whether it's just going to be always open, or is it a collapsible group, or is it just going to be open when the user checks the box. So there's a lot in there, and that can really help make the user interface a little bit more user friendly, and it brings it more into alignment with the way the regular FME transformers actually operate as well. So it allows for that customization there. Oops, there we go. Another parameter type there is the yes/no option. So rather than us building a choice parameter and saying configuring it to just be yes and no, there is just a checkbox parameter type now. So we can say, well, if the box is checked, we're going to send through a value of yes. If the box is no or unchecked, we send through a value of no, but those values are customizable. So if you want it to be something else and you just want it to be large or small or whatever it might be, you can do that. The prompt itself is separate to the values that are going through. And one final one in here is the choice tree, which allows us to use select choices at multiple hierarchical levels. So you can see the thing here. I've just created a very simple tree. We have level 1, and then we have a sub level of 1 inside that. This is just a single choice, but you can actually choose to use multiple ones as well using the tree-like structure. So if you want to use just select everything at level 1. It will include all the sub-levels below that, but you might just want to pick a particular sub-level. And it's not limited to just one level or two sub-levels. You can keep going depending on how you need to set up and your data is formatted or structured even. So what does the new interface look like? So going from that previous one on the second slide I showed, that dialog box was the parameter manager. And when we use prompt and run, or the prompt for user parameters option, or we can actually use the same types of dialog boxes with our custom transformers as well. So we can really make our custom transformers behave as if they are regular FME transformers now with the user interface. So in this example here, I've just got 3 screenshots of the same parameter dialog box, just as I go through and fill in various bits. So it opens up. It is just red text, so there's no asterisk there. That is just in the parameter manager itself, where we're configuring everything. You can then populate that. You can see we've got a group message that's collapsible there, and then we move into the middle screenshot there. You can see that's I've just clicked on the triangle there, and we've expanded that section. I've then populated some stuff in there. So those 2 were compulsory parameters. So in the first screenshot, the little red exclamation mark is present, just to say you've got to go in and populate something in here. The last one is just that checked option as well. So when I check the box, it opens up automatically for us, and I can go and then enter some data in there. And whoops, let's go on. And that concludes my presentation for now. So are there any questions anybody would like to ask me?
Okay, let me just see if there are any questions there. Thank you, Tom. Okay, a question has come through. Can parameters or groups of parameters appear when other parameters receive a value?
Okay, that's a good question. I think ultimately that's where we'd all like it to go. So if you put a particular value into a key parameter, it will then present other parameters to you so that you can populate those. At this time, unfortunately, that is not the case. But I think we're certainly heading in the right direction towards that sort of functionality. But basically, it's a case of, yeah, the way the form will be set up now is that everything is still available. Some of it might be in a collapsed group, which at least hides the content from you, but it's not going to automatically appear or expand just because you populate another parameter at this time. Hopefully in the near future, there will be some more functionality in that area to add that in. But yeah, that's the state as it is now.
Excellent, fantastic. Thank you, Tom.
No problem.
Okay, we will now move on to Simon, who will do a presentation on self-service. Welcome, Simon.
Thanks, Andre, and thanks everyone for joining us today. So yeah, as the slides say, I'm going to talk about self-service. So it's really a term for setting up a system that allows your end users to effectively have full control and access to go and do their own tasks, whether they may be requesting some data or submitting some data or running a process themselves, rather than tying up your resources such as your GIS team or your FME users, in this case with actually assisting and running this on their behalf. So usually set up in a way that the end user doesn't necessarily need to have any FME skills or knowledge or training. And the functionality that they may be accessing would typically be through a web interface customized for their particular needs. And in some cases, you may have end users who don't even know what FME is to start with, but also don't know that FME is the engine behind the scenes driving their application. So with FME Server and the new web apps, which aren't necessarily new for 2021, however, it's worth repeating because it's a really useful set of functionality that you can use to help alleviate some of the resourcing constraints you may have, or just to give some of your users who are constantly requesting data or support, give them the ability to have this sort of self-service or control over what they need to do. With FME Server, you can control the access to these. So if you do set up a web application, suddenly everyone has access. Well, you can actually control this through providing username and password authenticated access, whether it be through FME Server directly or whether it ties back into your Active Directory in your organization. And as we've had Sam talk about, integrate. So really use FME Server as an integration platform, combine that with self-service, and hey, you've got a great platform to enable you to get a lot done more efficiently. So under the hood, FME Server provides us a range of functionality to give us access and ability to move data in and out of the platform. So these services listed here, they're out of the box FME services. So when you're publishing a workspace to FME Server, you can select one or more of these type services, and this really determines what your workspace will do when it runs on FME Server. So whether it's taking data in, pushing data back out to the user, perhaps just submitting a job or a process to run, or even streaming data back through a KML file. And then these services, once you put a FME Server workspace app on top of this, it gives you a really quick and easy way to get your foot in the door with giving your users the ability to go and run their own processes or submit or receive data themselves quite quickly and easily. So the first one I just want to draw your attention to is around data submission. So this is really about giving users, whether they're within your organization or perhaps outside your organization, the ability to submit some data using FME Server and the upload service. So what they're submitting may be data that you're looking to ingest and do something with. It may also be data that doesn't actually need to be utilized by FME to update any spatial data or to write in anywhere, but you're just using FME Server as a quick and easy way to ingest that data into your organization. So when you get that data, you could perhaps put it on a network drive somewhere, or put it on a cloud service and then secure it and then make it accessible to other users. You could email or perhaps send a message, using one of those connector transformers to a Teams channel or to Slack, or send someone an SMS based on when you've received some data. You also might go to that next level of getting some data, ingesting it, and then validating it to confirm or check that the data you've received from a user actually meets the requirement you have for that data. So maybe you've got a data spec or a particular standard that has to be adhered to. You could use FME to go and do that validation to actually check whether the data has met that standard. If not, you could then return it back to the user before it even notifies anyone within your organization that the data hasn't met the particular requirement and that they need to go away and address the issues and then resubmit. You could even go one step further beyond that of validating, and then if it is meeting your standard, you can then use it to perhaps ingest the data into an existing table or method you're using to store it, and then publish it perhaps to a database or a web service to make it accessible to other systems and other users within your organization. The other method we see that's quite common and really a really quick win for some organizations is giving users internally or even sometimes external to their organization the ability to go and do clip and ship type jobs. So this is where you've got perhaps some data that's mastered in your organization in either a particular system, so whether it's in a database or in a particular format, that perhaps not all users can easily get access to in the format, or just due to the way it's secured, can't get access to it the way that they would like it. So what you could do, and this example here showing, is setting up a simple workspace that you could go and create that gives users the ability to go and define the area of interest that they're looking to get the data for, provide some other parameters about, what they're doing with the data and so on, and then also specify the layers or the actual data they wish to receive. As I mentioned at the start, you can control access. So using FME Server, you could either set up individual discrete user accounts for the users that you want to provide access to this via. Otherwise, you could also leverage your Active Directory, if you have one within your organization, to easily give access to users using their existing login, so you're not having to create new accounts for users. That can be a really good way to manage access to these sorts of FME server applications, so you don't have everyone and anyone going and running clip and ship jobs. And this one's really quite simple to set up, and also takes a lot, or can take a lot of the load off your GIS team in terms of having to field these sorts of requests from time to time. So yes, with all basic FME things, starting Workbench, this is quite a simplistic example of how we could use a workspace that we could then publish to FME Server to provide a clip and ship. What we can do is set up a parameter for that feature reader that we would feed into it the geometry in this screenshot here, showing how we can actually choose a geometry by enabling the user to draw a polygon or a square of that particular area of interest. And also then another parameter using the new parameter control functionality, a list which would then give the user the ability to specify the particular layers that you would like to receive. In my example, which you can't see, I've got it pointing at a PostGIS database that has a series of tables within different schemas that are available. So there's a list there that enables the user to sort of say whether they want roads or parcels or address or whatever that feature is. I think you can now see my screen. So that particular feature reader is what we're using to do the bulk of this heavy lifting in the workspace. That's going to go and read that workspace, read that data in. And then finally, we're using a feature writer in the dynamic mode. So what that means is that no matter what data it receives, so long as it gets the schema feature, it will then also generate the particular table or file, depending on what file format that is. And that feature reader I've got set up to use the generic generic writer type, which I then have another parameter on there to specify exactly what file format I want users to be able to specify and utilize when they're running this. So I'm now going to quickly swap to FME Server and show you what this looks like when it's published as a server app. And in here, what we have is...
Simon, it's on mine. Do you want to just try and screen share if you're going to go to server?
No, that's fine. I can just talk to the screenshot here we're showing in the PowerPoint, which can still be seen. So in that screenshot there, we've got the first name, last name, organization. Underneath that geometry window, there's the ability to specify the geometry, which you're seeing in the pop-up, but also specify the layers and the particular file format that the user would like to receive it in. So for example, it might be shape or geodatabase or a map info tab file, or a range of different formats that you can, as the person putting this together with FME, can go and specify. So if you only want your users to receive certain layers and in certain formats, you've got that ability within the parameters to go and specify exactly what it is you want your users to be able to control. So that wraps up my presentation there of self-service. Were there any questions that we've received?
Okay, thank you, Simon. I do believe we do have a question that has come through. Yes, there it is. I would like to present a user with a list of file names that are stored in a database table. Currently, I need to load the list of file names into the parameter. and then reload if the file list changes. Is there any move to be able to connect a parameter into a database table view, which would then be able to dynamically update, to be dynamically updated?
Yeah, that would be a very handy feature. So within FME Workbench, when you're, for example, setting up that parameter to populate that list of data sets from that particular database or that schema within a database, that's unfortunately the one time that you'll have the opportunity to set that in a dynamic way. Once you have that list populated, unfortunately at the moment, that's the only time that you can go and retrieve that from the database. So you'd have to go back in and readjust the parameter in the situation where you have an additional table or additional data set in the database. There's no process at the moment to enable that to be dynamically read in, but I think that's high on the request list that there is for parameters, similar to the one that Tom mentioned, which would be having sort of nested or filtered pick lists. So it's up there, but at the moment, it's not currently something that can be achieved.
Okay, thank you. Another question has come through. What formats can I use for self-serve, clip and ship?
I'm not sure if that question is related to the input or the output formats, but I guess the answer applies to both in that it's really limited to any format that FME can support. So for the source, it could be any range of different database types or flat file formats or anything that really FME can read in. And then likewise for the output, I guess it really has to be limited to flat files because they have to be something that can be zipped up and returned to the user via the browser. So it doesn't really work with an output format of a database. It has to be into a flat file that can be then sent back to the user.
Okay, thank you, Simon. Don't seem to be any more questions coming through. So thank you again, Simon, and we will move on to our next presentation called Creating PDF Reports that Assis Manandahar is going to present. So welcome, Assis.
Thanks, Andre, and welcome everyone to our next topic in FME 5 Hot Features, and it is about creating PDF reports. We all have come across PDF documents, and many of us have converted a Word or Google Docs into a PDF format. But what if we need to create a PDF report where the details are calculated from the input features, or we calculate the input features, calculate the parameters and store it in a database, but at the same time we want to send a report out of those calculated features. Well, today I'm going to provide tips on how you can achieve that. Yeah, so if you open FME desktop and just start typing PDF, you'll be provided with a list of PDF related transformers. Some of them are PDF page formatter, PDF styler, which are available in FME desktop. Some of them are available in FME Hub, which is like HTML to PDF converter. And some of them are like default readers and writers like Adobe Geospatial PDF 2D reader and writers. So there are multiple ways which you can create PDF reports from FME. The default Adobe Geospatial PDF writer is a way to create PDF 2D PDF formats. There's another way, which is using the HTML to PDF converter. And if you want to create a 3D PDF document, then you can use the Adobe 3D PDF writer as well. As an overview, FME has got read and write access to the 2D PDF documents. It can write to 3D PDF documents. And as a terminology, A layer in PDF is synonymous to a feature type in FME, whereas a content object in PDF is similar to a feature in FME. So first I want to talk about the default Adobe Geospatial PDF Writer. This PDF Writer is available in FME Desktop from Professional Edition and higher. It outputs PDF version 1.7, but you do have an option for compatibility for PDF version 1.4 as well. And this PDF writer is great for creating a single page or multi-page PDF document that has a common page structure. It supports 2D vector images, drawings, raster images, and blocks of text. A tip here would be to, if you want to add in text as in the PDF, you need to convert it into a label. So I suggest using a label point replacer or a text adder to convert the text into a label, so that you can place that label into the PDF document. As you can see in the bottom left, I have 2 pages of a PDF that I've created, which shows the title, the image extracted from a polygon, from a map, and also on the bottom left, I've got the feature itself, and on the right hand side, I've got a label of the feature, which describes what which describes the parameters of the feature. So we can create this kind of reports from the Geospatial PDF Writer. There are multiple options on the Geospatial PDF Writer. So we can set the page size, the line width, and the text font type as well. If you want to put in fonts which are a different font type, then you need to provide the folder location where the fonts have been installed. And also an important feature of the PDF writer is that you can save the attributes in the PDF document as well. So that will be available when you read the PDF document in any other PDF readers. For this, PDF page formatter and PDF styler are very handy transformers, which will help to design the PDF document that you need. The PDF page formatter is a very handy and convenient tool, convenient transformer that allows us to set the layout of the PDF page that you want to write out to. In the right, you can see the screenshot of the PDF page formatter transformer, and on the bottom we can see that how I can drag and drop the different objects depending on where I want to put those objects on the page. So if I set the page as on the PDF page formatter right now, I would get in an output, I would get the PDF document as in the center of the screen, like the one over here. So I have shown put the title on top, an image in the center, and the feature on the bottom left with the details on the bottom right. A tip here would be that any parameter that you set on the PDF page formatter, like the page size, will override the parameter in the PDF writer. So you need to be careful on if you're setting a page size here and in the PDF page writer, this will override the one on the PDF writer. So you might have a question like, what if you need a PDF document which follows multiple format layouts? So FME supports multiple page formatter, and you can set up multiple page PDF page formatted transformers and have the outputs pointing to just one PDF writer. So you can have multiple different layouts of the PDF page and into one writer. So another handy transformer that will help in creating pretty PDF reports is the PDF styler. Here you can specify the color, line style, text font, and even the font, different italics or bold. Yeah, there's a lot of options in the PDF styler. But alternatively, if there are a lot of PDF format attributes such as PDF line width, PDF underscore text underscore font, PDF text italics, and instead of using the PDF styler, you can expose these PDF PDF format attributes and set the values so that you have the PDF document as you'd like. So a tip to creating multiple page PDFs, which I've seen people having trouble with, is that in order to create a multiple page PDF, you can use the PDF format attribute called PDF page number. So for it, we just need to group the elements that we want to print out into a common page number and expose the format attribute PDF page number and update its value to that common page number. So that might help you in creating multiple page PDF from the PDF writer. Another way which you can create pretty PDFs is by using the HTML to PDF converter. This converter or transformer is available on the FME Hub, so you'd have to download it from the FME Hub before being able to use it. And it is created by Safe Software Labs themselves. It has got two versions, and the version 2 requires FME 2021 0.2. The version 1 can be run from FME version 2020 and higher. So the workflow to using this transformer is that you would calculate all the values that you require to put it on the PDF page, and you would convert that into an HTML page and use this transformer to convert the HTML page into a PDF document. This converter will internally use WK-HTML to PDF command line tool. So you need to have this command line tool installed or be available for this transformer prior to using this. So if you are comfortable with creating an HTML page from your features and styling using CSS, then you can easily use HTML to PDF converter. So you just need to create a PDF page with the HTML table or different stylings with logos and fonts and different elements placed on the page, and then just push it out to this converter and it will convert it into PDF. The input types, it can extract HTML from any URL that you provide or a HTML file that you have in your local machine, or you can even put the HTML code in an attribute and pass it into this converter, and it will create the PDF file from it. Finally, like if you have a requirement to print, to push out 3D elements into a PDF document, FME has you covered, and you can create FME 3D PDF documents. This Adobe 3D PDF Writer is available in FME from Professional Edition and higher. It creates one single page PDF with interactive 3D annotations, and that can be opened up in Adobe PDF reader or any other PDF readers which support 3D elements. The 3D models represented in this in the document produced from this writer will be in the Adobe PRC file format, that is the Adobe Product Representation Compact file format. With that, I'd like to conclude my presentation, and if you have any questions, please let me know.
Okay, thank you, Assis. Looks like we have got a question that has come through. The PDF templater does not take in attributes for page numbers. How do I create multiple pages?
Yes. Yeah, the PDF page templater only allows you to statically type in the page numbers, but as I mentioned before, if you expose the PDF page number attribute, the PDF format attribute, and in that attribute you can provide as an input a value from different other attributes. So I suggest to use that format attribute.
Okay, thank you very much, Assis. And we will now go on to getting started quickly with FME Cloud. Priyantha, welcome, and we'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Andre, and thanks, Assis. Good afternoon, everybody. So I'll start sharing my screen. Yeah. It was really interesting, actually, to know what you can do with FME desktop and particularly FME server to automate and to integrate and finally to increase productivity of your day-to-day data management works. So what if you don't have required hardware and network facilities to install FME server or to run FME server instance, or else if you don't have human resource to manage additional servers? It could be can't afford long-term server maintenance costs, and you need a highly scalable server system. So in which case it might be cost effective with your local area network and hardware. So also your data is already on cloud. So in that case, you are looking for a cloud-based solution. And also if you are concerned regarding security and do not know how to manage security in server environment and cannot afford third party to manage security of the system, and or else simply if you like to try out FME server with minimum cost. So in all these situations, the best solution is FME Cloud. So it provides access to the power of FME server instantly without the burden of managing hardware and security. Let's look into advantages of FME Cloud over FME server on premises. It is obvious the main purpose of going on cloud is to avoid the capital and maintenance costs for hardware. Also, security is an important fact in server-based solution. The FME Cloud uses Amazon Web Services, which use high-grade encryption and supports all major compliance standards. Also, instances can be launched in Asia Pacific region. We call in short form AP Southeast 2 region. Therefore, you can make sure all data and workspace you upload into FME Cloud located within Australia. And more specifically, because all these data centers in AP Southeast 2 region are located in Australia, actually. And the next one is the next advantage is the flexible pricing model available in FME Cloud. So you can have pay as you go, it's on-demand pricing, or else subscription, could be annual subscription. And next one is the ability to spin up unlimited number of engines in cloud instances. Actually, when we are talking about number of engines, practically the number of engines should be determined by the availability of resources and resources usage by processes running on the instance, rather than we can't just spin up any number of engines on instance, then it won't be useful. And The ability to scale up or down with few clicks of buttons is a great advantage in FME Cloud. Usually in case of on-premises servers, we end up spending more money on scaling up hardware to meet increasing demand or waste money on redundant resources. It is easy to set up alerts based on conditions that may impact the uptime and performance of your instance directly in FME Cloud, which makes it easy to optimize performance and deliver high level of uptime. So enough talking about advantages. So let's see how to start with FME Cloud. So it's straightforward. So first step is to create an FME Cloud account if you don't have one already. Sign up is simple process which you can do by following this link appears in this slide. So once you sign up, you will get $250 worth free credits to start. So you can enter your credit card information while you sign up, but it won't cost you anything. Just give you this free $250 credits to start. And then if you're happy and if you want to continue, you can purchase more on-demand credits or pay-as-you-go credits or annual subscription as required. And it is possible to set up your account to manage by one special if you prefer. So it comes at extra cost actually. It's obvious. So when you're creating or when you're signing up into a new account, you will ask to enter base URL for your account during this sign up process. And so for example, this is a screenshot of that dialog box you will get while you sign up. So then you can enter a base URL like, for example, it's /Australia. So your base URL will be https://Australia.fmecloud.safe.com. And you can use this base URL to log into your FME Cloud console and set up instances. When you are setting up instances, for example, if you set up instance called dev, and if you want to name it as dev, then your instance URL will be https://Australia.fmecloud.safe.com. So let's move into the next step. Once you set up the account, you can simply log into a console and click in launch instance button to launch a new instance. Once you click launch instance, you can enter a name for that instance and then just the URL as I mentioned earlier, and then the description, and move on to next step and select the version, FME server version. So this is the recommended alpha version, and then you can select the instance type, be starter, standard, and different types with different RAMs and cores. And here we can select the region, so where you need to host this instance. And also you can set OS security updates to unattended. And then enable default alerts. Next, and give you an overview about the cost it will incur if you run this amount of hours in a month. And just simply click on launch button. So that's it. So then you will get an instance. This is one of the instances that I have already created. So you can see this one pricing model is on demand, and you can go to subscription and change it later. Here we get the URL. You can copy it into a different tab in the web browser, and here you go. You get a new FME server instantly. And as I mentioned, you can go to the subscription tab and purchase a subscription and assign it into your instance and set up static IPs and alerts and monitoring. You can see these tabs for monitoring, backups, all these things you can manage within this console. So if you have any question in getting started with FME Cloud, we are more than happy to assist you. So contact us through support@onespecial.com. We can help you in analyzing your requirements and deciding a pricing model, or else any other technical support regarding FME Cloud. And as I mentioned previously, we can even set up a managed service for you. So then You don't have to worry about anything, security upgrades, upgrading, and monitoring. Everything will be done by one special. You can simply plug into the FME server and work on FME server itself. So that's it for today. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them now.
Thank you very much, Pri. I'll just have a look to see if we have got any questions. Okay, we do have one here. Should we enter credit card details when signing up for new FME cloud accounts?
Yeah, actually, when you are signing up, it asks you to enter credit card details. It's give a page, but I think if you try to sign up in last year or so in previous years, you couldn't actually go beyond that point without entering credit card details. But now, actually, you have facility to sign up without credit card details. It will take a while because they need to approve your sign up process and then send an email to log in. But if you have a credit card, it's instant. You can simply enter details and sign up for a new account, but it won't cost anything for you, as I mentioned previously, so you will get free credits anyway.
Thank you very much. Excellent. Alrighty. The services that we provide, we've been providing FME services since 2004 in Australia. We are the premier FME Platinum partner for safe software and FME within Australia, as I mentioned earlier. We have a dedicated support team for FME Desktop, Server and FME Cloud, as I've mentioned earlier. We provide services, consultancy services and training, and invite you for any support matters to go to support@onespatial.com or to call our 1300 290 686 number and go through to support. Thank you very much. I hope you did get a lot from our 5 hot features, and they will heat you up or get you all fired up to give your FME more get more productivity from your FME. On the 15th of July, we've got our GDA 2020. The latest case studies is a follow-on from last year's GDA 2020, getting prepared to do it. In August, we will be having an FME Server Month where we'll be doing something about FME Server every once a week for the month of August. In September, we'll have our One Spatial breakfasts where we'll be coming to a location near you for face-to-face presentations for breakfast. So keep an eye out for that. And if you're interested, make sure you get registered quickly. October, we will be doing more webinars on our One Spatial products. And in November, we'll be doing a short presentation on the Smarter Data, Smarter World conference that will be held in the UK with we'll be bringing you the best of that. Again, to get in contact with us, contact us at sales.australia@onespatial.com or call us on 1300 290 686. And for any information, visit our website onespatial.com.au.